The morning sky over New Busan colony turned silver as three massive ships descended through the clouds. They were unlike anything the colonists had ever seen. Smooth, gleaming vessels that moved without sound or visible engines. Commander Wu Jin ran from his small office to the observation deck, his heart pounding as he watched the alien craft settle gently in the empty field beyond the colony walls. "Sir, what do we do?" asked Private Dong Hyuk, his voice shaking as he joined the commander at the window. The young soldier had never seen anything like this in his 2 years guarding the struggling settlement. Wu Jin had no answer. New Busan was dying slowly. Their farming equipment broke down faster than they could fix it. The medical supplies were almost gone. Half the children in the colony had been sick for weeks, and Dr. Hyejin was running out of medicine to help them. They had sent desperate messages to Earth asking for supplies, but help was still months away. Now these strange ships had arrived, and Wu Jin did not know if they brought salvation or destruction. A door opened on the nearest ship, and tall figures emerged. They walked on 2 legs like humans, but they were different. Their skin was pale gray, their arms and legs too long, and their eyes were completely black with no white parts visible. The leader wore what looked like expensive clothing, made from materials that shimmered in the sunlight. "Should we call them militia?" whispered Dong Hyuk, his hand moving toward his weapon. "No," Wu Jin said after a moment. "If they wanted to hurt us, they would have done it already. Let me talk to them." The alien leader approached the colony gates with slow, careful steps. When he was close enough, he pressed something on his chest, and suddenly he was speaking perfect Korean. "Greetings, humans of this settlement. I am High Curator Veltar of the Zephyrian Empire. We come in peace, seeking cooperation between our peoples." Wu Jin stepped forward, trying to hide his fear. "I am Commander Wu Jin. Welcome to New Busan Colony. What do you want from us?" Veltar's black eyes studied the human leader carefully. "We have been watching your species for some time. You show great potential, especially in adaptation and learning. We wish to offer you a partnership that will benefit both our civilizations." Behind the alien, more of his people emerged from the ships. They carried strange devices and began scanning the area. Some of them looked toward the colony school where human children were playing during their lunch break. "What kind of partnership?" Wu Jin asked, though something in the alien's tone made him uncomfortable. "Your colony is struggling," Veltar observed, his voice showing no emotion. "We can provide advanced technology to fix your farming problems, medical supplies that will heal your sick children, energy systems that will never fail. All we ask in return is cultural exchange." Dr. Hyejin had arrived and was listening from nearby. She stepped forward, desperate hope in her voice. "Medical supplies? We have children who are very sick. Can you really help them?" "Of course," Veltar replied smoothly. "But our help comes with conditions. We are particularly interested in your young. Human children learn quickly and adapt well to new situations. We would like to take some of them to our educational facilities. They will receive the finest training in the galaxy and return to you as leaders of tomorrow." The alien's words sounded wonderful, but Wu Jin felt a cold knot forming in his stomach. "How many children are you talking about?" "Initially, perhaps 50 from each colony we visit. They will be well cared for, given opportunities beyond anything you can provide here. Think of it as sending them to the best schools in the universe." Young Yoon-soo, who had been listening from the edge of the crowd, pushed forward. "My son Daeho is only 12. How long would he be gone?" "The education process takes approximately 2 Earth years," Veltar explained. "During this time, the children will have no contact with their families. This is necessary for proper psychological development and learning, but when they return, they will possess knowledge that will transform your entire civilization." Several parents began talking anxiously among themselves. The idea of sending their children away for 2 years was frightening, but the colony was dying. Without help, many of the children might not survive another winter anyway. "We need time to discuss this," Wu Jin said carefully. "Of course," Veltar agreed. "But our offer will not remain open indefinitely. We have many colonies to visit and limited resources to share. Those who act quickly will receive the best opportunities." That evening, the colonists gathered in the HFY community center for an emergency meeting. The debate was emotional and painful. Some parents refused to consider sending their children away. Others argued that it might be their only chance for survival. "Look around you," pleaded colonist Jae Sung, whose daughter had been sick for weeks. "Half our equipment is broken. We barely have enough food. The children might die here anyway." In the end, desperation won. 47 families agreed to send their children with the aliens. The next morning, young Daeho stood with the other selected children clutching a small wooden toy his dead father had carved for him. His mother Yoon-soo wept as she hugged him goodbye. "Be brave, my little one. Learn everything you can and come home to us." As the transport ships lifted off carrying the human children, Veltar watched from his command vessel with cold satisfaction. The humans had been easier to manipulate than most species. Their emotional attachment to their offspring made them vulnerable, but their scattered settlements meant they posed no real threat to Zephyrian operations. What the alien curator did not understand was that he had just made the greatest mistake in his species' history. 6 months had passed since the Zephyrian ships took the children from New Busan. Yoon-soo waited every day for news from her son Daeho, but no messages came. The aliens had kept their promise about supplies. New farming equipment arrived regularly, and medicine that actually worked. But the silence about the children made many parents worried and unable to sleep. Deep in space, on a dark moon circling a distant planet, Daeho crouched in a narrow maintenance tunnel. His hands were bleeding from sharp metal edges, and his thin body shook from cold and hunger. The wooden toy his father had made was long gone, taken away on his first day in this terrible place. "Are you sure this will work?" whispered Ginny, a girl from another colony who looked much older than her 13 years. Her face was covered with strange scars from the medical experiments the aliens performed on them weekly. "It has to work," Daeho replied quietly, connecting wires to a communication device he had built from stolen parts. "Someone needs to know what they are really doing to us." The truth was horrible beyond imagination. The Zephyrians had not taken the children to schools. Instead, they brought them to mining facilities, research centers, and military training camps scattered across their empire. The children were forced to work in dangerous mines where deadly radiation slowly poisoned them. Scientists performed painful experiments on their bodies to study human biology. The strongest children were trained as soldiers and sent to fight in wars against other alien species. Daeho had watched 12 of his friends die in the past 6 months. Some died from the poisonous air in the mines. Others died on operating tables during medical procedures. A few were killed in the fighting arenas where Zephyrian soldiers watched human children battle each other for entertainment. Test subjects 7 through 23 report to medical bay, announced a cold voice over the facility speakers. Janae's face went pale. She was number 19. "I won't come back from this one," she whispered to Daeho. "The radiation experiments are getting worse. Tell my parents on Kepler Station that I tried to be brave." Daeho squeezed her hand. "You will survive, you have to." But Janae was right. She died that afternoon, her body unable to handle the radiation they pumped into her. Daeho cried silently as Zephyrian workers threw her body into the disposal unit like garbage. That night, he finally managed to get his communication device working. The signal was weak and full of static, but it might reach human space if he was lucky. "My name is Daeho Kim from New Busan Colony," he whispered into the device. "If anyone receives this message, please listen carefully. The Zephyrians lied to our parents. We are not in schools. We are slaves." His voice cracked as he continued. "They make us work in mines where the air burns our lungs. They cut us open to study our bodies. They force us to fight each other while they watch and laugh. Many of us are dead already. Ginny died today. She was my friend." The signal was picked up by Captain Hyunwoo, who was flying his cargo ship through the outer systems. He almost ignored it, thinking it was space interference, but something about the young voice made him listen more carefully. "Please tell our families we love them," Daeho's message continued. "Tell them we tried to be good. Tell them the aliens see us as nothing more than animals to be used and thrown away. If you can hear this, please help us. We want to come home." Captain Hyun-woo immediately sent the recording to every human settlement he could reach. Within hours, similar messages began arriving from other locations. Children from dozens of colonies were sending desperate signals from alien facilities across the galaxy. The reports all told the same horrible story. The Zephyrians had been harvesting human children for years, using their trust and desperation against them. High Curator Veltar reviewed the situation reports with his staff, completely satisfied with their success. "The human breeding stock is performing well," he told his officers. "Their children adapt quickly to harsh conditions and provide excellent test subjects. The species shows useful genetic diversity for our research programs." "What about the communication attempts?" asked one of his subordinates. "Some facilities report the subjects are trying to contact their homeworlds." Veltar made a dismissive gesture. "Humans are scattered across hundreds of weak colonies. Even if they receive these messages, they lack the unity or technology to threaten our operations. Continue the harvest as planned." On Earth, President Tae-min received the recordings in an emergency meeting with military leaders. Around the conference table, hardened generals and admirals sat in shocked silence as they listened to children begging for help. "How many?" whispered Admiral Soo-jin, her voice barely audible. "Early estimates suggest over 10,000 children from frontier colonies," replied Intelligence Director Min-ho. "The aliens have been systematic. They target isolated settlements, where people are desperate enough to accept their offers." President Tae-min stood slowly, his face showing a rage that his staff had never seen before. "Send messages to every human world, every colony, every station. Tell them what we have learned. Tell them it is time to bring our children home." What the Zephyrians had failed to understand about humans was now about to become clear. They had awakened something far more dangerous than any military force, the protective fury of an entire species fighting for their young. The harvest was over. The reckoning was about to begin. The recordings arrived at every human settlement at the same time. Colony administrators, ship captains, military commanders, and ordinary families all received the same terrible message. Children's voices, weak and frightened, telling the truth about what the Zephyrians had done to them. On Earth, President Tae-min sat in his office watching the footage that had been smuggled out by a dying maintenance worker named Jong-soo. The man had given his life to get these images to human space, and what they showed made even experienced soldiers turn away in horror. Human children in metal cages, their bodies covered with surgical scars, young faces twisted in pain as alien doctors performed experiments on them. Boys and girls no older than 10, forced to fight each other with weapons, while Zephyrian guards watched and placed bets on the outcomes. "Sir," whispered his aide, "we are receiving reports from every human world. The reaction is unprecedented." Tae-min looked at the communication board. Red lights were flashing from hundreds of locations across human space. Every colony, every station, every ship was sending messages with the same demand: bring the children home. On the frontier world of New Seoul, Administrator Park Bo-young received confirmation that 32 children from her sector had been taken by Zephyrian educational programs. She immediately ordered all available ships to prepare for military action, despite having no formal military training herself. "Ma'am, we are just a mining colony," protested her security chief. "We have cargo haulers and maintenance vessels, not warships." "Then we will make them into warships," Bo-young replied coldly. "Every tool can become a weapon when your children are in danger." Similar scenes played out across human civilization. On the agricultural world of New Incheon, farmers began converting their harvesting machines into weapons. The corporate executives of the outer system mining operations stopped their profitable work to focus on war preparations. Even the criminal organizations that usually fought against human law enforcement offered their ships and expertise to the rescue effort. General Min-ho, who had spent 30 years fighting other humans in various conflicts, found himself working alongside his former enemies. Colonel Park Soo-jin, whom he had been trying to capture just weeks earlier, now sat across from him planning joint operations. Strange. Minho said as they studied star charts together. I have been fighting humans my entire career. Now I remember why we are all so dangerous when we work together. The speed of human organization amazed even their own leaders. Within 72 hours of the first recordings being received, every major human faction had agreed to combine their forces. Political differences that had caused wars were forgotten overnight. Corporate rivals shared their resources freely. Military units that had been enemies began training together. Admiral Su Jin, commander of Earth's largest fleet, received volunteer applications from retired soldiers, civilian ship captains, and even teenagers barely old enough to serve. Everyone wanted to help bring the children home. We have never seen anything like this, she told her staff. Every human world is sending everything they have: ships, weapons, supplies, volunteers. It is as if our entire species has become a single military force. Dr. Su Jin, one of humanity's best scientists, abandoned her peaceful research to develop weapons specifically designed to fight Zephyrians. She worked day and night, studying the alien biology samples that had been collected over the months of contact. They thought they were studying us, she said grimly, as she worked on biological agents that would target Zephyrian physiology. Now, it is our turn to study them. On the mining moon where Daeho was imprisoned, the young boy noticed changes in his alien guards. They seemed nervous and kept receiving urgent communications. Some of the Zephyrian scientists stopped their experiments and began destroying research data. Something is happening, he whispered to the other surviving children. The aliens are scared. His uncle Jae-sung, who had stayed behind on New Busan, managed to send a smuggled message through a cargo ship communication system. The message was short but filled with hope. Hold on, nephew. Hell is coming for them. High Curator Veltar reviewed the intelligence reports with growing concern. Human military activity had increased dramatically across their territory. Ships were moving in patterns that suggested coordinated planning. But surely the primitive humans could not organize such a large operation. Sir, reported one of his intelligence officers, we are detecting massive human fleet movements in 17 different sectors. It appears they are preparing for simultaneous attacks on our facilities. Veltar felt the first touch of real fear. Impossible. Humans are too divided, too primitive. They lack the unity for such coordination. The evidence suggests otherwise, sir. Every human faction appears to be working together. Their entire civilization seems to have united for a single purpose. For the first time since beginning the harvest operation, Veltar began to wonder if they had made a serious mistake. The Zephyrians had conquered many species by exploiting their weaknesses, but they had never faced anything like this. An entire civilization driven by the simple, terrible purpose of protecting their young. Across human space, the final preparations were being made. Ships were loaded with weapons, soldiers said goodbye to their families, and commanders made their final plans. The rescue fleets were ready to launch, carrying with them the combined fury of humanity focused on a single goal. The Zephyrians were about to learn what happened when you threatened human children. They were about to discover that beneath humanity's civilized surface lay something far more dangerous than any weapon. The primal, unstoppable force of parents fighting to save their young. The awakening was complete. The war was about to begin. The attack began exactly at midnight, coordinated across 17 different star systems. Admiral Su Jin's massive fleet dropped out of hyperspace around the mining moon where Daeho was imprisoned, their weapons already charging as they emerged from the darkness between stars. All ships, this is Admiral Park. Her voice crackled across every human communication channel. Remember why we are here. Every child comes home today. Everything else can be replaced. Our children cannot. The Zephyrian defense fleet tried to form battle lines, but they had never faced anything like this. Human ships came at them from every direction, not following any military doctrine the aliens understood. Cargo haulers had been fitted with mining lasers and rammed directly into enemy vessels. Passenger liners converted into troop transports charged through defensive fire that should have destroyed them. Captain Hyunwoo led a group of volunteer civilian ships in a desperate assault on the facility's main shield generator. His cargo vessel had been modified with salvaged weapons and armor plates welded to its hull. As enemy fire tore through his ship, killing half his crew, he never slowed down. "For the children!" he screamed into his communicator as his ship smashed through the generator complex, his sacrifice allowing the rescue teams to land. On the planet's surface, Lieutenant Wu Jin led his soldiers through corridors filled with deadly radiation. His own daughter Su Bin was somewhere in this facility, and nothing would stop him from reaching her. When his squad's radiation sensors warned them the levels were fatal, they simply turned off the alarms and kept moving. "Sir, we need to retreat," gasped one of his men, blood trickling from his nose as the radiation poisoned their bodies. "The exposure will kill us in minutes." "Then we have minutes to find them," Wu Jin replied, his voice steady despite the pain burning through his organs. "Move faster." The Zephyrian guards had never seen humans fight like this. These were not soldiers following orders or fighting for territory. These were parents and siblings and friends, and they fought with a fury that ignored tactics, ignored safety, ignored everything except the desperate need to reach the children. General Minho's forces didn't just attack the facilities, they destroyed everything that could be used to hurt human children ever again. Research laboratories were burned to the ground. Medical equipment was smashed beyond repair. Dr. Su Jin's biological weapons, designed specifically to target Zephyrian physiology, turned their own advanced technology against them. "They are not fighting like soldiers," High Curator Veltar reported to his superiors, his voice shaking with panic. "They use no strategy, no proper tactics. They sacrifice themselves without hesitation. It is like fighting against wild animals." "Then, treat them as animals," replied the Zephyrian High Command. "Use maximum force." But maximum force meant nothing against humans who had already decided their own lives were acceptable losses. When Zephyrian fighters destroyed human ships, the survivors would use escape pods as weapons, ramming them into alien vessels. When human soldiers ran out of ammunition, they used their tools, their fists, anything they could find. Maintenance. Worker Jae Sung had volunteered for the mission despite having no military training. He found himself trapped in a damaged section of the facility with 3 other humans, facing a squad of heavily armed Zephyrian guards. "We have no weapons left," whispered one of his companions. Jae Sung looked at the mining equipment around them, then at the gas pipes running along the ceiling. "We don't need weapons. We just need to be creative." Minutes later, the explosion tore through that entire section of the facility. The Zephyrian guards were dead, and Jae Sung's team had opened a path for the rescue squads to reach the children's detention area. Deep in the facility, Dae-ho heard the sounds of battle getting closer. The explosions, the screaming, the sound of metal being torn apart. The other children huddled together in fear, but Dae-ho smiled for the first time in months. "They came for us," he whispered to the others. "I told you they would come." The Zephyrian scientists tried to evacuate their research data, but human soldiers had anticipated this. Every computer was destroyed. Every file was burned. Dr. Su Jin personally led a team to destroy the genetic samples and research notes that contained information about human children. "Delete everything," she ordered her technical teams. "They will never use our children for experiments again." The battle lasted only 6 hours, but it changed everything. Across 17 star systems, human forces overwhelmed Zephyrian defenses through sheer determination and creative desperation. Ships that should have been destroyed kept fighting. Soldiers who should have died kept advancing. Parents who should have been afraid became unstoppable. When Lieutenant Wu Jin finally found his daughter Su Bin in a medical facility, he was dying from radiation poisoning. But he lived long enough to carry her to safety, to whisper that he loved her, to see her rescued. Captain Hyunwoo's sacrifice became legendary, the cargo pilot who destroyed a shield generator with his bare hands and a dying ship. Maintenance. Worker Jae Sung, who proved that any human could become a weapon when children were threatened. High Curator Veltar watched his empire's forces collapse with growing terror. These humans didn't fight like any species he knew. They fought like something else entirely, like beings who had decided that death was preferable to letting their children suffer. "Sir," His aide reported. We are receiving surrender requests from facilities across our territory. The human forces they are not taking prisoners. They are just taking their children and destroying everything else. Veltar finally understood the mistake his people had made. They had not simply attacked a primitive species. They had awakened something far more dangerous, the protective fury of parents who would burn down the galaxy to save their young. The surrender came faster than anyone expected. High Curator Veltar stood in the ruins of his command center, watching human ships surround his remaining vessels. His empire, which had ruled dozens of star systems for centuries, had been destroyed in less than 2 weeks by a species they had considered primitive. Admiral Sujin's flagship docked with a Zephyrian command vessel. She walked through the corridors with her security team, her uniform still bearing scorch marks from the recent battles. When she reached the bridge, Veltar was waiting for her, his black eyes filled with something the proud alien had never felt before: complete defeat. I am here to discuss terms, Veltar said quietly. There are no terms, Admiral Park replied coldly. There are only demands. Every human child will be returned immediately. Every facility where you held them will be opened to our inspection teams. Your species will pay for what you have done. Veltar looked at the human leader and realized that negotiation was impossible. These beings had not come to conquer or steal resources. They had come for one simple purpose, and they would accept nothing less than complete victory. You cannot possibly enforce such requirements across our entire territory. He tried to protest. General Minho stepped forward, his scarred face showing the marks of the recent fighting. His grandson had been rescued from one of the research facilities, but the boy would never be the same after months of medical experiments. Watch us, he said simply. The next few weeks saw something unprecedented in galactic history. Human ships appeared at every Zephyrian facility simultaneously. There was no negotiation, no diplomatic process. The aliens were given one choice: return the children immediately or face complete destruction. Most chose to surrender. Those who tried to resist discovered that human fury had not cooled with victory. Transport ships that tried to flee were hunted down across multiple star systems. Facilities that tried to hide their crimes were burned to ash. One by one, the children came home. Deho stepped off a medical transport at New Busan Colony, walking slowly into his mother Yunsu's arms. He was thinner than when he left, marked by scars and terrible memories, but he was alive. My brave boy, Yunsu whispered, tears streaming down her face. You survived. You came back to me. Across human space, similar reunions were taking place. Subin was reunited with her family, though she would need months of medical treatment to recover from the radiation experiments. Children from dozens of colonies returned to parents who had feared they would never see them again. But not all the children came home. Memorial services were held for those who had died in alien facilities. Jin'ei from Kepler Station, who had helped Daiho send his first message for help. Yongsu, the maintenance worker who died getting evidence to human space. Hundreds of young lives lost to alien cruelty. President Taimin addressed the Galactic Council for the first time since the war began. Representatives from dozens of alien species listened as he delivered humanity's message to the galaxy. The Zephyrian War is over, he announced. But let this be a warning to every civilization that can hear these words. Any species that harms a human child will face the full response of our people. We have proven that we will sacrifice our ships, our worlds, our lives to protect our young. The alien representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They had all received detailed reports about human military capabilities during the recent conflict. What frightened them was not human technology, which was still relatively primitive, but human determination when their children were threatened. Ambassador Kethra of the Altarian Federation spoke for many when she asked, "What assurance do we have that humans will not use this same fury against other species for lesser offenses?" President Taemin's answer was simple and terrifying in its honesty. Don't give us a reason to. Treat human children with respect, and you will find us to be peaceful neighbors. harm them, and discover what we are truly capable of. Dr. Hai Jin, now Director of Human Child Protection Services, established monitoring stations throughout human space and beyond. Her organization's single mission was ensuring that no human child would ever again disappear into alien facilities. "We learned something about ourselves during this war," she wrote in her final report. "When our children are threatened, we become something different, something more dangerous than any weapon or fleet. The galaxy needs to understand this." The Zephyrian Empire was broken apart, its territory divided among species that had been its victims. Veltar and his officers were imprisoned on a remote world, forced to spend their remaining years thinking about the consequences of their actions. Years later, when Daiho graduated from the New Busan Military Academy, he took an oath that every human soldier now swore, "No human child will ever be taken again. This we promise, and this we will die to ensure." The oath was not just words. Human military doctrine was rewritten around a single principle: the absolute protection of human children. Ships were stationed at every human settlement. Communication networks were established to ensure that no colony would ever again face such threats alone. The Zephyrian War became required study at alien military academies across the galaxy. The lesson was always the same: humanity's greatest weakness had become their greatest strength. Their love for their children was not just an emotion, it was a weapon of unimaginable power. When other species encountered humans in the years that followed, they remembered the lesson burned into galactic history. The beings who seemed so peaceful and reasonable could become something entirely different when their young were threatened. The galaxy had learned to fear the fury of human parents, and that fear would keep human children safe for generations to come. Never again would any species make the mistake of underestimating what humans would do to protect their children.